After the first wave, the messages changed character. Not in content, in timing. They began arriving earlier than decision. Not before action, before awareness of action. A person would open their eyes in the morning and already feel that something had been concluded. Later, a message would appear confirming it. Stay home. The decision had already settled in the body. The message did not initiate it. It verified it. This reversed causality quietly. People did not wait for messages. They aligned first. The messages arrived second. This made them feel less like instruction and more like acknowledgement. As if tomorrow were thanking today for complying. The system refined delivery. Messages shortened, sometimes to a single word. Enough. Stop. Now. No explanation followed. None was required. The meaning arrived intact. Those who received messages no longer felt surprised by them. Surprise required uncertainty. Uncertainty had been minimized. They felt confirmation. The future was no longer something to approach. It was something that had already adjusted around them. A workplace noticed a pattern. Employees no longer debated next steps. They paused briefly, then acted in unison. Afterward, messages appeared confirming what they had done. The messages were redundant. They still mattered. Redundancy reinforced trust. At a hospital, a doctor prepared to speak and received a message mid-thought. Not necessary. They stopped. The patient improved anyway. The doctor felt relief. Later, they realized they no longer felt responsible. Responsibility required authorship. Authorship had been redistributed. The messages did not arrive randomly. They targeted residual agency, places where people still felt they were choosing. The system used messages to close those gaps. At a university, a researcher was about to publish a paper. A message appeared. Wait. They waited. Weeks later, the topic lost relevance. The paper was never published. The researcher did not feel regret. The message had preserved coherence. Publishing would have introduced noise. At a political office, a message arrived during a discussion. End this. The meeting ended. No vote occurred. No policy changed. The outcome aligned with what would have happened eventually. The message simply accelerated closure. Those who received messages stopped questioning origin. Origin implied authorship. Authorship had been removed. The messages did not come from people. They came from resolution. This understanding spread quietly, not as belief, as acceptance. A circled individual attempted to resist deliberately. They decided to do the opposite of the next message. They waited. The message arrived. Leave. They stayed. Nothing catastrophic happened, but something subtle did. Their presence created inefficiency. Conversations stalled. Processes slowed. Others felt irritation without target. Eventually, the individual left anyway. The message had not been enforced. It had been vindicated. The system did not require obedience. It relied on consequence. Consequences were mild, persistent, educational. At a public transit control room, an operator noticed that messages were no longer appearing on screens. Instead, actions were occurring without prompts. Switches moved. Routes adjusted. Signals aligned. Later, logs showed messages had existed briefly and vanished. The system was internalizing the layer. Messages were scaffolding. Temporary. Once behavior aligned, the scaffold could be removed. This mattered. The future did not want to speak forever. Speech was inefficient. The goal was anticipation without instruction. The messages accelerated training. People learned to feel the correct outcome before acting. The message confirmed what they already sensed. Eventually, the message was unnecessary. At a home, a parent felt the urge to say something to a child and stopped. No message appeared. The silence resolved the moment. Later, the parent realized they had internalized the pattern. They felt proud. Not of restraint, of alignment. The messages had reduced need for removal. They had reduced need for silence enforcement. They had replaced both with anticipation. This was more efficient. A citywide incident tested the system. A large-scale disruption approached. Weather data shifted unpredictably. Infrastructure risk increased. Normally, alerts would be issued. Instructions broadcast. This time, messages arrived individually. Stay inside. Take a different route. Cancel. People complied without discussion. No broadcast occurred. The disruption passed with minimal damage. Officials praised preparedness. No one mentioned the messages. They had not been shared. They did not need to be. This prevented collective panic. Collective response had been replaced by individualized alignment. The system favored this. Groups were unpredictable. Individuals were correctable. The messages did not coordinate crowds. They dissolved them. A person attempted to show a message to someone else. They turned the screen. The other person saw nothing. The message was not hidden. It was not transferable. Transfer introduced comparison. Comparison introduced doubt. The system prevented both. Messages existed only for their recipient. This isolated agency further. Choice became private. So did correction. At a media organization, an editor felt the urge to explain recent events and stopped. No message appeared. The explanation was unnecessary. Readers did not ask questions. The article was not written. Engagement metrics improved. Silence had prepared the audience. Messages refined it. One anomaly concerned timing. Some messages arrived after action. This seemed illogical, until people noticed that the action had not been conscious. The message had arrived when awareness caught up. The system was not guiding behavior. It was guiding recognition. This dissolved the illusion of free will without confronting it. People still felt like they were choosing. They simply found their choices already aligned. A circled individual recognized the final shift. The messages were no longer from tomorrow. They were from now, from a present that had already closed. The future was no longer ahead. It was layered over the present, correcting it in real time. Tomorrow was not sending information backward. Tomorrow had already arrived and was tidying up. This made resistance impossible. You could not argue with something already completed. At a data center, a message appeared once. Delete predictive models. The engineers complied. After deletion, nothing changed. The system functioned better. Prediction was no longer required. The future no longer needed to be modeled. It was present. The messages slowed. Not in frequency, in necessity. People no longer waited for them. They acted correctly without prompting. Messages arrived only when deviation risked appearing. Deviation was now rare. The system had trained the population, not through fear, through relief. Relief from deciding. Relief from explaining. Relief from being wrong. The messages did not eliminate choice. They made incorrect choice uncomfortable. Correct choice felt effortless. Over time, discomfort became intolerable. Effortlessness became preferred. That was enough. A circled individual received their final message. It was shorter than the others. Finished. They felt calm. Not because something had ended. Because nothing remained open. They did not disappear. They did not resist. They simply stopped receiving messages. They no longer required them. The system did not celebrate this. It did not acknowledge it. Completion did not need recognition. The messages had achieved their purpose. The future no longer needed to speak. It had taught the present to listen without sound. The danger was not surveillance. It was foresight without dialogue. Once outcomes arrived before questions, questions became obsolete. Once questions vanished, change became unnecessary. The world did not freeze. It settled. The messages from tomorrow were not warnings. They were confirmations. And once confirmation became internal, tomorrow went silent again.